Hello, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Oral Gibbs Live. I'm sliding my chair here a little bit. Let me settle now. And you're going to meet my guest. Very interesting gentleman right here on Oral Gibbs Live after these words from the sponsors. The Windward Islands Bank in 3 locations. The Windward Island Bank in Phillipsburg, Cul-de-Sac, and also in Simpson Bay. The Windward Islands Bank, the first bank on St. Martin. That's the Windward Islands Bank and GEBE, or Local Water and Electricity Company, serving St. Martin for over 6 decades. It's GEBE, or Local Water and Electricity Company, GEBE. And I'm Oral Gibbs here with you on Oral Gibbs Live. Just a reminder that you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Oral Gibbs, and you can subscribe. Then you'll know exactly when the show is uploaded or when we're live. And we are also on 99.9 FM radio station here in beautiful Simpson Bay on the Simpson Bay Strip. And, well, we're all over the place. Anyway, it's good to be here with you, and I have a very interesting guest, a colleague in the industry, Mr. Rolando Tobias. How are you doing, sir?
Well, good evening to you, Oral, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And as a congratulations, man.
Thank you indeed.
25 years.
25 years, and time sure goes fast. You know, it's incredible. I can remember when I began in radio, vividly, and so the time has surely flown by. 25 years later.
So you said you can remember it vividly. Let me see if you had the same memory like me.
Yes, like? I started to work in Windward Islands Bank. I've been there about 6 years, and 2 colleagues that worked with me at the bank, Mr. Wilson, Perry Wilson, and Stanley Lind. And they had been doing a program on, at that time, GBBC, 99.9 with Eddie Williams and Mike Jarvis and the others. And they were not too good at what they were doing, and I'd been in Toastmasters and doing a lot of public relations stuff for the bank at that time. So they asked me to join them and give them some pointers on how they can improve, their presentation and their interviewing skills. And I did that just from an advisory role. I would sit down there and write down some things and then give them some feedback at the end. And after a few months, they decided they were going away to study. And I needed to take over the radio shift, the program. Yeah. And as a result of that, I ended up taking over the full evening shift at that time at GBBC from Monday to Friday in the evening, from 6 until about 9. And then Saturday morning as well from 9 until 2 at that time. So it was quite interesting. That's how I got into radio, not intending to, but I've always loved the challenge, always wanted to do different things. So getting in radio, that definitely was something that after all these years, I said I think it was a good idea that I did not tell them no at that time, because that was the beginning of great things for me when it comes to media on the whole, not just radio, but media on the whole. Of course, at that time, GBBC, when I started in doing the evening program, Eddie Williams was in charge of the news desk. He was in charge of the station, and he was head of the news desk. And Mike Jarvis, Mr. Jarvis, was then also the station manager. And Phyllis Mate was also there at that time. And being in between those giants when it comes to the business, they really took me under their wings and were very serious about my development in radio. I can recall vividly Mr. Williams, Eddie. Eddie was no nonsense. And I remember the one morning we used to read the weather around 12 o'clock on Saturdays. So Eddie brought the weather information to me, and he gave it to me, and it was just about time to read it. So I went and I told him thanks and put on the microphone, and he signaled to me, stop, turn off the microphone. And he lectured me. He said, don't you ever put on a microphone when you get a piece of paper in your hand and you have not read it before. If you want to be good, you need to set a standard and be professional, because you don't want to put on the mic and then you're reading and you're making mistakes, because it reflects on you, but it reflects also on the station. Exactly. So that's the kind of training I got from folks like Eddie Williams, Mike Jarvis as well. And because of that, I really developed real quick in the broadcast business on the whole.
Well, at least we have something in common, is that you didn't start at PGD2 Radio.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Well, yeah. I ended up there, but I didn't start
because
there.
Almost everyone on St. Martin started at PGD2 Radio.
Yes.
I started back in New York back in '78. That's a long time ago, 44 years ago.
Yes.
But I think it's good that you reflect on that, because when I reflect on the first show I did on radio, it was a disaster, a real disaster.
Yeah? Wow.
I mean, they laughed at me and said, "You're not coming back." I said, "I'm coming back. I'm going to be good." And I started listening to guys like Dan Ingram from WABC New York and Cousin Brucey. And by the time I returned after the summer vacation, I was like the best guy on radio. Went on to be a music director and program director. So, it's interesting to see how you start in radio. Yeah. I don't know if you love radio more than television, but I love radio more than television.
I love radio more than television because it's much more flexible.
Yeah.
Television still is much more rigid in terms of, but I love radio, but I have no problem doing television. I also enjoy doing television.
Yeah.
Over the years I started actually in 1999 after 2 years in radio. Mm-hmm. The Kiwanis at that time used to host the political debates. And that was actually my first time hosting a political debate was from the Kiwanis. I remembered myself and at that time Beverly Hyman. We did it together. That was the first one. And
what year was that, you said?
That was in 1999.
99.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The Kiwanis. That was the federal elections at that time that was being held. And after that, I started doing another television program, Inside Politics, which was produced at that time. I hosted it, and it was produced by Jenny Hanley, along Davy Woods at that time was the director. So I did that for a while. And then Ricardo Williams, who also did the AVS debates, he also then asked me to coordinate and host the AVS live political debates as well. So, and then from that, I moved into actually the Lieutenant Governor, Franklin Richards, back in 2007, I believe it was, yes. He asked me then to do the live on-air announcing of the election results, the nightly election results, which I have done since 2007 for practically every election for the past 15 years. Mm-hmm. So, and as you talk about which do I prefer, radio or television, I enjoy both of them, but I particularly enjoy the flexibility that radio gives.
And I think too, for me, radio, you're more anonymous. People don't know you. Yeah. When I was in radio alone, I came back PGD twice. I went there for about a year. I'll be standing in Marigot on the ball field during carnival time, and I hear people speaking about me.
Yes,
and
they
nice,
don't know it's
but
you.
They were speaking about me in a nice way, but it was nice.
Yes.
I didn't have to worry. Now with television, you got to make sure your shoes are okay, that, your tie, I prefer it.
But on the whole, I think, media is such a great thing, but it has changed, Oral. It has really changed over the years.
Well, I think when you walked in and I said to you about your news conference that you had for your 25th year, and you said the media doesn't turn out like before, a lot of things have changed. When I started, there was no social media.
Indeed, yes.
So a reporter got maybe 25 or hour and a half notice to be at the place for a news conference. It's going to be there because there's no other way to get it.
Indeed,
Today now they're sitting at home and they're spoiled because they can turn their TV on and watch Parliament.
Indeed,
you can get all these releases. So there's no real substance to the news anymore. They're all sitting waiting for that to arrive.
Indeed, yes. And not just not enough substance, but also the actual content, the accuracy and the objectivity of news nowadays. It's sure a story out there, and if it's not correct, someone is gonna come and argue it and try to bring their other side of the story. So the original way of bringing news and delivering news has changed in such a manner that it's incredible. The accuracy and the objectivity and that credibility of the journalist is not there like it used to be.
But it's not about accuracy anymore. It's about being first.
First, yes.
It doesn't matter if it's wrong, but being first, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you worked in news radio for a while too.
Indeed,
also, right?
Yeah. I'm working with Eddie Williams and Mike Jarvis. When they hear a story, the first thing is we have to verify this. So it was all about when you go and actually announce it, has it been verified? Not anymore. Like you said, it's who can get it out there first And then if it's not correct, we would, get the other side of the story, and it's just more news that we're getting. So indeed, things have changed in the broadcast business.
But at least you survive for 25 years, which is good. A lot of people start and they stop and they start and they stop, and
yes,
you're consistent.
Yeah, and that is the word indeed, consistency. That is something we don't get enough of nowadays. I sometimes see, whether it's radio or television or social media on the whole, people celebrating their first anniversary, and then you wonder, okay, you're doing a weekly program. A first anniversary would be 52 programs. How many programs have you done? Sometimes I see the announcement, there'll be no program this week for whatever reason, and then they're celebrating 1 year, and it's as if, wow, I've done so much. But that consistency is not there, and it's not just the consistency, but I think there's too much of a commercial aspect that's attached to it now.
Really?
It's more about, it's more of making money. That's what a lot of people get into it for. It's no longer for the passion of it, or as you and I did over the years, you just have a genuine love for it, for the standard and everything, and you stick with it. And as you said, having the public, because you said it so correctly earlier, you would stay in the shadows and the public would speak, and they would be speaking very favorably of all the television programs that you have done. And even when you were doing radio back then, most people are not interested in that, just having that good reputation out there for being in the business, as much as, is it something I can get into where I can get some sponsors and make some money, and that's it. That's all I need to do, but nothing about a proper reputation and developing a standard for the broadcast business.
It's extremely difficult to make money. I mean, when I look back over the years, if I didn't like what I was doing, I wouldn't be here today.
Indeed, yes.
It's hard to make money.
But that's why you see so many of them get into it and they don't last 2-3 years. Because folks tend to think that running a radio station, you're in both of them and you can attest to that. Running a radio station or doing television, there's a lot of money in it. And that's not the case. There has to be the passion for it, and you get too many who jump into it just because they believe they can make good money, but only quickly to realize that that's not the case. It's a labor of love if you want to be really doing it.
And even for people who own stations, now I was speaking to one of the shareholders of PGD. He said to me, I haven't received dividends in years because there's no money.
There's no money in it, not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
But you're there working still. You make money, make a lot of
Believe it or not, Oral, if I were to say it, and I can say it, all the years that I've done radio, especially my radio program, Caribbean Classics, King Stunky and I, Marvin Dollison, at no time have we been paid for it. But because I wanted that program to be a hobby, and you should not be paid for a hobby, because if you start to pay yourself for a hobby, you start to focus too much on the money-making aspect and not the passion that you have for it. So the program, the public would notice that we've always had only one or two sponsors, because it was just do the program, make sure you can cover the cost of paying the station for the airtime. But in terms of paying ourselves, we never paid ourselves a cent. We have never done that. But it offered also us some flexibility in that there are certain things that I had told myself over the years I'm not going to do. Certain types of sponsors. I had always said I will not be advertising for casinos or liquor stores and the like.
You like me?
Yes. I don't care how much they're going to offer me. I'm not gonna, because there are certain things I just do not want to promote. And as a result of that, it was good, because it wasn't as if you need the money to pay yourself, so just enough, pay the station and have fun. It was really a fun program, especially that Caribbean Classics program.
But it's still going on.
It's still going on. It's now, this past weekend, we celebrated 23 years of Classics.
On your 20th anniversary, I don't remember.
Yes. I still see it on YouTube as well, the interview. So for that program now, the King Stunky, Marvin Dollison, and I are doing 23 years. So that program is still going strong. I started it 2 years after I started doing radio. My job is at that time used to do a short music program with calypso music on a Saturday morning. And then he couldn't continue doing it. And I loved what he was doing. And I decided, I'm going to take it up and really make it a central part of radio. And that's how Caribbean Classics was born. And because of that, you know, the public response that we've gotten from that over the years, we couldn't stop even if we wanted to stop tomorrow.
We got to talk about that. You know what I tell you, we got to talk about that because here on 99.9 FM, Hot 99.9 FM, we're playing some calypsos.
Yes.
And I'm shocked because the response from the people is unbelievable. I didn't expect that.
Yes. Yes. It's amazing how popular calypso music is.
Yeah.
And whether it's the new ones that are just coming out, they are popular as they come out, but also the older ones, you know.
The old ones that I'm playing.
The older ones are the ones that the public love because it creates a very nostalgic feeling, you know, and it takes people back in time. And whether it was good days or not so good days, the calypso music really had a perfect way of capturing what was happening in society. And it's amazing things that probably happened was happening 20, 30, 40 years ago when a calypsonian sung a calypso. It can play today, and these things are still happening today.
Yeah.
So because of that, you know, we say calypso is one of the timeless music formats that you have because at any time you can relate to what is happening.
You know, it's interesting because Greg, who he now passed away, calypsonian, used to be on my show. And he always brought me a CD when he came on the show. I went back looking and I found the CD. Yeah. And I never played them at the time. And now, I didn't know Greg was that good.
Greg was very talented. Greg has a collection of music. And Greg was in a class by himself. Yeah. You know, we have so many of those artists that it's always so that because you're around them every day and you know them on a personal basis, you don't see the talent that most of them have. And as you said, Greg was one of the most talented singers. He had an incredible voice, you know, these musical arrangements, whoever he was sitting with doing the arrangements, he always ensured that there was quality in his music, you know, there was that drive. And him along with so many of the others, I have to commemorate the 25 years, the collection that I presented to the library, and there also has some music from Greg. But there are some 100 artists that I found music from, not just calypsonians. Yes, not just calypsonians, but overall artists from St. Martin who have done music on St. Martin. 100 of them that I took the music, a total of 999 songs, and contributed that to the library. The main purpose for that was that I wanted the music to be preserved in a public area where the public can get access to it, because we have a great collection between Marvin Dollison and myself of calypso music, but also of local calypso music. But we've seen over the years, there have been others. You know, Mama Spurl, I'm sure you would remember. Mama Spurl had a great collection. I think it was a storm that came or a fire he had at his home, and all the music got destroyed. So he lost all of that music. There are some of the others. King Bobo had a great collection, lost all of the music. So, you know, because we're so prone to natural disasters, whether it's hurricanes or fires, I said, I don't know what would happen to my collection tomorrow. And I think the collection should be in a public place where any and everyone can have access to it. And in commemorating 25 years in radio, I said I'm going to make that presentation to the library.
That was a very good gesture you made.
Yes. It's about preserving our natural heritage, our cultural heritage, you know, for future generations so that they can have access to it. The music now that it's at the library, if students have to do research, and like you were talking about Greg, if they say, I want to go and see who's Mighty Greg, they can go and listen to all of his music. You know, because it's now available at the library. The library is not selling the music. The intention is not that they're going to sell the music. The only thing they would do is if an artist, the owner of the music, wants the music, all they have to do is come with a USB, brand new USB, and they would copy that music of that artist and provide to them. So, and what they're also asking is that the artists, when they come for the music, they want them also to come along with some biographical information, because the intention is to build a complete music library in the library. So if students come to do research or anyone wants to know about the artist, they don't just get the chance to listen to the great music, but they can also read the biographical information in terms of who is the artist and what has this artist done over the years.
So you have that on the Mighty Greg also on that collection?
We have Greg in the collection. We have, like I said, 100 artists. I can go down some of them for you.
Biographical information?
Not as yet, but not as yet. But the intention is we're going to check with his family to get that. So right now, all we have done is provided the music to the library, and now we're going to go through the process of actually getting that biographical information from the different artists. And the library is going to play a very important role in ensuring that they do that.
I don't want to make anyone think that I'm taking sides by mentioning Greg. The reason why I mentioned Greg is because he was on this show many times before he passed away, and I never listened back to see until I got a radio station, and then all of a sudden, people are stopping me on the street and asking me where I got that from.
Music.
I thought that all the stations had Greg music. Apparently, it doesn't seem so at all.
That's not the case. You know, we have so many radio stations now, and for those that play the local music, it's incredible the music that's out there that they don't have, and they just don't play. They only play a few, you know.
But you have most of it.
I have a lot of it. Like I said, I put 999 songs on the USB that I contributed to the library, and that wasn't all of the local music that I have. You know, I stayed at 999 songs because I wanted it to be symbolic of where I started, 99.9. And because of that, I said, I'll stick with 999 songs.
Yeah.
But there's much more that I have, and I'm also going to contribute eventually to the library as well. Okay. And the music as well, Oral, spans some 50 years because it starts way down in the early 70s from the days of folks like the King Arrow with Come to an Island.
Right.
Baker Senior with a song called Come, you know, Genius, Fire in the Town, and all of those songs. So the music is from the early 70s right up to our last carnival that we had there in 2022. So it spans 50 years of music.
So you have a list of some of the names?
I have the list of some of the names of the artists. I can go through some of them. Okay. We have Andre James. Andre James, yeah. He has a beautiful song called My Beautiful Island. We usually play it for St. Martin's Day. He lives in the U.S. I believe he lives in New York.
Together, that's what I'm saying. Andre James.
Yes, yes. Okay. He was with Calvin. He did a lot of stuff with Calvin Mardenborough.
Yeah.
He has a beautiful St. Martin's Day song. We have Annie's Girl, and this was a junior. She was a junior Calypsonian. We have Bad Boys. You know Bad Boys, the Yorks, Churchy, Freddie, Cougar, and the others. We have, and I can tell you the amount of songs that I found of them. Bad Boys, we have about 19 songs from their music collection that I contributed to the library. Baker Jr., 15 songs. We also got a song from Baker's father, Baker Senior, who also performed, you know, in the early 70s as well. A beautiful song called Come. Calypso Barber, who did a wonderful job over the years with the juniors as well. We have some of her songs. Bobo, we have some 87 songs from Bobo in the collection that was contributed. Brat, about 28 songs from Brat. Calix, the mighty Calix. You would remember Carlisle Rogers.
Right.
Also, he had an album that he did along with that time. It was his wife, Lady Melody, Ramona Riley Phillips Riley at that time, Rogers, and I have 8 of his songs. The Mighty Cat, you mentioned Greg.
Cat.
But Cat was also, yes.
I don't have any music from him, but I think I have a video of it. He was on this show also.
Yes. He was original with his music. So we have about 25 of his songs. Control Band, some 30 of their songs. Cool Creations, which was a band, you know, Stunky and the others, Kai Sobrat and all of them, when they were much younger. So we have their album there as well with 8 songs. The King Arrow, we mentioned, some 67 songs from him. The Mighty Dow also, 67 songs from the Mighty Dow we also have in the collection. And I can just go down the list, but that just gives you an idea of some of the artists that we have that we contributed to the library and to the library's collection. We have Genius as well. Genius, we have some 61 songs from Genius. Believe it or not, Genius is one of those artists, you know, that did several albums over the years. As a matter of fact, he said he has done some 35 albums in his career.
Wow.
You know, so we have 61 songs that I had in my collection from him. Fish the Mega Boss, Fernando, who was Fish's father.
Right.
You also have some of his songs there as well. So I can go down, but it's 100 of them in total, Oral, and that we got. I have music in my collection that I then presented to the library.
I'm gonna call a name. I don't know if you know King Tempo.
Of course, Tempo. Yes, I have. Let me see.
Let me see what you got there.
Tempo. We have some 15 songs from Tempo. Two of his albums. Tempo is also one of those original artists, with his own
good.
style. So it's very good as well. He has a beautiful song for St. Martin's Day as well. So yeah, we have them.
Macro. You have Macro from him?
Macro?
Yeah.
Yes.
People love that one.
Yes. An artist that's on here too is Melvin Hodge. Melvin Hodge.
He's a very good singer.
Yes, he did an album with it was called Melvin and Frankie, and it's not just calypso music, but they did some of the standards, Frank Sinatra and some of those they did over in their style. So that's also in the collection.
Good.
Melvin also used to do a radio program with me in the beginning at GBBC as well, where he played a lot of local music, and actually I got quite a bit of the local music from him as well back in the day. So it was good to include his music here as well.
Melvin is great. In fact, I get people commenting to me on YouTube about him.
Yes.
Great guy.
Great. Talented, with a beautiful voice.
It's amazing, Mr. Tobias, that when you look at St. Martin, you presented on your 25th anniversary in radio 999 songs by local artists.
Yes.
And we always talking a lot of crap on this island that we don't have any artists, they're no good. And here we are.
Yeah.
You got the proof.
Yeah. And it's really unfortunate that is the impression that's given. We focus so much on the negative sometimes, and things like this, I think, although I did this for my anniversary, this is something that could have been done a long time. We do have a culture department that you would wonder sometimes, what are we busy with that you're working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and where projects like this should not be coming from an individual. I just did it because I felt I wanted the music preserved, for posterity and future generations. But a project like this can take so much more, and so much more can be done with it. The library now wants to do that biographical information, so they want the artists, when they come, bring your biographical information. But there are some artists here who are no longer alive. We spoke about Greg, for example. And I'm not sure if a family member of his is going to be that willing to go and compile the information and present it to the library. And this is something that probably the Department of Culture can take up as the next step.
Exactly.
Get these artists, go and do the research and provide that information. So the talk, we spend too much time focusing on the negative. We like to say those kind of statements, only in St. Martin, and there's nothing in St. Martin, and nothing happens in St. Martin. And I think that's really unfortunate, because lots of great things happen on this island. If you listen to some of this music, you would stop and say, listen, this place, St. Martin's music, and even if we're talking about only calypso music and road match music for that matter, we had an original sound. That's why when you talk about artists such as Greg, and Brett and Bobo and Kat, we had an original sound. Later on, yes, the other artists came, the jam band style and the bouillon style and everything. But when you listen to some of the original music, St. Martin's music had its own sound, unlike any of the other islands. But sadly enough, indeed, it's like you said, the radio stations don't play enough of the music, of our local music. We've been so Americanized, that they don't play enough of the local music for especially the younger generation, to hear it, so that they can really appreciate what kind of talent we have here on St. Martin.
When I was getting ready to launch the station, which we haven't done yet, we're still in some testing phase, I asked Calypsonians to give me some music. Well, the only one that responded right away was Jacko. Okay, Jacko gave me some songs, he playing. Others sent me that I had to go through all kind of codes I couldn't deal with that one. And the thing is that they complain that the local stations don't play their music, but they at the same time need to show some interest in getting their music to the station. Then you can complain, because I have proof now that they're running their mouths, but they're not doing what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I find is unfortunate indeed. Some of the Calypsonians, there was a time back in the day when they would ensure when they cut a CD that they get it in the hands of every radio station. After a while, they stopped doing that. There's some of them that say yes, but you would go and buy a CD of an artist from Barbados and an artist from Trinidad, but I need to bring my CD. But if you want to promote yourself, there has to be something that you have to put forward for it as well. But Oral, don't underestimate how many of those, whether it's the Calypsonians or the local artists, no longer have their music.
Yeah, I know. Some of them I told me they don't have it.
They don't have it.
That I can understand. And that's the Calypsonians that came back from the 70s, 80s era, like. But some of the modern ones, they have it, but they just feel like, I'll tell you yes, but...
Yeah, they never worry with it again, yeah. Well, I do hope that now that we've done this, I've taken this music and put it at the library. Indeed, as we said, all of those who own the music can go and get it, and then hopefully they'll bring it to you so that you can, improve the library here of your radio station as well. I think any station that wants to play local music, the local artist should embrace it and ensure that their music gets to the station.
Timo is also very good, and Timo, every time I invite him, he had a CD, he'll bring it too.
Indeed. Yeah.
So people hear Timo playing. It's amazing how the audience on St. Martin, we're made up from a lot of Caribbean, people from all over the Caribbean, and they just love to hear local music.
Yes.
I came back from America. I'm into rock and roll. I'm not a calypso guy. I'm really a pop music kind of guy.
Yes.
And but what I'm seeing here now is a real love by our people for that local music that just isn't there until only when you're playing it with Stunky on a weekend.
Saturday. Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate. We even, Stunky and I even complain about it.
Really?
Yeah, because we said, it's a pity you're driving during the week. You want to hear some of those nice calypsos as well. Yeah. And you go from station to station. And there's probably only one other station that plays calypso on a daily basis, which is 101.5. But outside of that, you don't have too many of the stations that are playing it.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. Huh?
It's really unfortunate. But we're hoping that would change now by making it available, because most of them would tell you indeed they would play the music if they can get it. But if they're not getting the music, then they cannot play it. But hopefully we'll see that change now with making this music available to the public library.
Okay. Well, in case you've just joined us, I'm Oral Gibson and Oral Gibbs Live with Mr. Rolando Tobias, celebrating 25 years in radio. And I said to him, why? He didn't say broadcast. And we come back, we're going to touch some more on that and a lot more right here on Oral Gibbs Live with Mr. Rolando Tobias.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself.
Promises, we can make it if we work together. That's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation. Yes, we can.
The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it.
Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Oh, never give up. Oh, never give up. We can make it.
Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it.
The power to serve, standing for community. OGB got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy. OGB.
Make use of Web Mobile Banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net.
My guest on the Oral Gibbs Live is Mr. Tobias. Mr. Tobias is celebrating 25 years in radio. We like to say broadcasting, but you stick it as radio. So you made your presentation to the library. You gave them 999 songs, but you had a lot of preparations. How did it came about?
Well, it was interesting because, of course, this music is not my music. I've compiled music,
right,
and I want to present it to the library. But of course, there's always issues about copyrights of the music, who owns the music. How can you just take my music and give it to the library? Is the library going to go and sell my music and make a profit of it, and then I'm not going to get anything? So in order to ensure that there was no copyright infringement or anything, we sat with the library, with the director, Ms. Holliday, along with Ms. Hausen, and Mr. Pete Lucas, and we discussed the entire issue of, once this music is given to the library, what are the limitations and how is the library going to go about to deal with having this music. For me, it's a cultural heritage. I want it in a public place, so I'm giving it to a public institution. But for the library, it was important that they get it clear that they are not going to be selling the music. They're not in the business of selling the music. The artists are the owners of the music, so they cannot go and give that music to anyone else unless it's the original owners of the music, so the artists themselves. And they are going to ensure that once the music is there, the public can come in. They can go sit in the music center, listen to the music, but they cannot take it out. So they won't be able to copy it or anything like that. If they want the music, then they have to contact the owner of the music, so whether it's a Calypsonian or any other artist, and that artist then would provide them with the music. So for us, that was very important. And we also ensure that we inform, there's a new Calypso organization that's called SKA, S-K-A, which is the Swaliga Kaiso Association. Marvin Dollison, he's the president. Leroy Brooks, King Bobo, is the vice president. Fish, the mega boss, he's the treasurer. Baker Jr., I believe he's a member, a board member as well. So, and they are representing all the Calypsonians on the island. So for us, it was important. Also, we got in contact with them, especially with King Bobo and Stunky, the president and vice president, and informed them of exactly what it is we were trying to do, so that they could inform the Calypsonians, so you don't hear them, getting outraged because we are taking their music and giving it to the library. So all of that was important for us to put in place so that we can give the proper respect to the artists, so that they can feel comfortable knowing that it's not that we're taking their music and putting it so anyone can sell it and make money from it. We're just simply preserving it, but ensuring that all of the copyrights and everything is still respected because it is their music. So for us, that discussion with the library before, we're also signing an agreement with those conditions so that both parties would stick to it. Because after I did this, part of the agreement also is the collection that I have, I also cannot go and give it to anyone. Any of the artists who wants that music has to go now to the library.
And you're also helping the artists because, again, music is lost, don't have it anymore.
Yes.
It's a very, very good deal.
Yeah. They can replenish their collection now, and they themselves can now go, because music has changed over the years. It's not like before, the music was on a cassette deck or on a CD. It's now digital files.
Yeah.
So they can easily now go and sell their music again. Like you said, so many people are now interested in the local music. So the Calypsonians can now again sell their music, sell those digital files, and it creates an economic return for them as well. So it's the project. When I thought about it, I said, this is what I want to see happen. This is the way I want to see it happen, because we need to replenish our music, our availability of local music on the island.
We spoke about that very briefly here this evening about artists coming on the show, and they don't bring you a CD, or an author doesn't bring a book, and they don't realize what they're doing. In the U.S., when you go to a show, you're walking with the material that they're going to speak about.
Yes.
And here, they just don't. They feel like they're giving it away to you, not realizing you're giving away a lot to them just by having them.
Exactly. And they can take advantage of that opportunity, that the airtime that they're getting to promote themselves more, you know. But I'm hoping now with the SCA, the founding of SCA, which is the Calypso's organization, I'm hoping that they would do more of this to make sure the Calypsonians understand you have to take what you're doing serious. If you're not going to take your talent and serious, how do you expect anyone else to take you serious? You know, so I'm hoping that that's what's going to start happening
But
now.
in all fairness to the Calypsonians, they've taken a beating financially.
They have,
People
yes.
stealing their music.
Yes.
It's very hard to get your music sold.
Yes.
I can understand their point of view also.
Indeed. A lot of them would tell you they no longer do recordings because you spend all this time and money to go in a studio and do a recording. And the first time you put it on a USB and you give it to someone, it's multiplied 100 times and they get nothing out of it as well. You know, so times have changed, and with the changing times, they have to also ensure that they change with the times so that they can remain competitive and that the business can continue being profitable for them.
What do you think about creating a cultural fund for Calypsonians to assist them? Because if we don't do that, I think in the long run, the art form in St. Martin is going to disappear.
Yes, I think that's a very good idea, that a cultural fund, especially for to replenish the new group of Calypsonians that are coming up. You know, if in the collection here, I came across probably 20 or 30 young Calypsonians who were singing in the days, you know, the Young Dow, the Young Arrow, and some of these youngsters, Richie Rich and so on, who were singing, who are no longer in the business. And if you're not having that continuity, like you said, sooner or later, the older ones who are still doing it are going to get tired, and then the art form may die out. So indeed, I think that a cultural fund where we can replenish that. I know that there's someone that is talking about having the King Arrow, for example, before he passed, one of the things he wanted to do was to start doing calypso writing workshops with the schools, so that, you know, the youngsters can really get a feeling for what it is and so on. Regretfully, he then fell ill and couldn't continue, and then he passed away. But I understand that they're looking into that now, and I'm hoping organizations like the Swaligo Kaiso Association can be the ones to take up this mantle and try to push so that we can really develop the art form. But indeed, as you said, Oral, funds always becomes the issue, and when you talk to the Calypsonians, they can tell you, you know, how difficult it is to get funding, because to produce a calypso, you need to have money. You need to be able to pay the band, pay the person who's doing the producing, and so on. So it calls for funds. And regretfully, the Calypsonians have a challenge at times getting funds. And sometimes because of what they sing, you know, they step on certain toes. And, you know, so indeed, a separate independent cultural fund, like you mentioned, would be the best thing, because then it goes towards, well, every year we're going to produce 10 albums of 10 different calypso artists, which we are pushing out, that then becomes representative music of the island. So indeed, we probably need that separate fund, a cultural fund, as you say. And I'm hoping that people who are listening can step up and indeed do that.
I think people here still love Calypsonians.
Oh, yes.
But they don't show it. I remember when I had Arrow for the first time on this program. It was unbelievable. Yes. People started calling from all over. I didn't realize how many people love him.
Yes.
I don't even remember the first time I had Arrow.
I don't remember.
No, but it was.
You had him more than once.
Yeah,
though, so
but the first time was just unbelievable.
Yes.
And then he came back many times after that.
Yeah.
But I think that our people don't show their love and appreciation for Calypso. But I realize that now, after seeing people come to me and inquire about the songs that they're hearing, I said, wow, yeah, they're really into it, but they don't show it.
Yeah. And they're very seasonal, you know. It's really around Carnival time and then around St. Martin's Day time when you see that love come out as well. And you mentioned the King Arrow, and indeed, I was fortunate, I think back in 2011 or somewhere there, to travel with him to St. Kitts, where he was going to perform. He used to call me his manager.
He was a giant man.
Yes,
yeah.
you know. And Oral, you would be amazed. I stood on the field, and as the King Arrow performed, I saw people in tears, crying, you know, and remarking about how he came out dressed the same way he had dressed to perform a song back in the early 80s.
Wow.
And while he's performing, people are singing along and they're crying long tears. And I simply could not believe it. That's when I realized, we have such giants among us.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't show enough appreciation, and because they're there all the time, we kind of take it for granted. But indeed, we have a lot of Calypsonians here on St. Martin who are musical giants who have contributed over the years, and we've seen them grow. We talk about Stunky, we talk about Brat, we talk about King Bobo, who started back, in 1980, I think it was, he started, and is still performing now, and winning titles. And
he holds the record, right? Bobo does know the record for the
Bobo
most
holds
wins?
the record now, yes. It was between him and Brat.
Yeah.
But he's now holding the record, yes.
Brat is he's like a hermit,
Brat has his own style. Brat is, he by nature, Brat has always been, he'll come out and perform and then he goes back, and he's very low profile indeed, yes.
I don't know if you remember, but back in 1985, I think, or 86, he was on my other show, Speaking of Everything. He had just returned from Canada with the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
Man, those guys put on a show in Canada.
Yes. You
remember that?
I heard of that.
Oh, okay.
I heard of that. I think that's also the same year that they had to change their name. I was made to understand, because they went up there to perform as Rolling Stones, and there was a British band, very popular band called Rolling Stones,
right.
And they went up as Rolling Stones and came back down as Rolling Stones. Yes. And that's the other nice thing about Calypso, the history. When you talk with these folks, the experiences that they can share with you.
Yeah.
I was talking with Adolphus Richardson on Friday, and he was telling me about how in 1967 he used to sing Calypso. And that time the village was located at behind Caribbean Lumber, So sometimes these guys have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and just talking to them sometimes is simply incredible.
Adolphus is also one of the original Rolling Stone members.
Yes, he is. Yes. And he has also shared with me that he is now, there's a group that's in the Netherlands, I believe they are, who are doing some research and compiling music from the islands, especially Aruba, St. Martin, and Curacao. And they've contacted him for some of his Rolling Stones music, which they're also using as well. So it's always amazing that these folks, the ones that are still around, is important for us to talk to them. And that's why I said it's good for the youngsters to go to the library, listen to the music, do their research. They can meet with the Calypsonians or with any of the artists and interview them so that they can get different perspectives. Our youngsters need that oral. They need to be, we've become so Americanized that we need to put them back in touch with their culture, and I think this is one of the ways in which we can just do that.
Do you have any music from the Rolling Stones on that?
Yes, I do. I do have music from the Rolling Stones. Yes, I have 22 songs from the Rolling Stones in the collection. The Creole Stars as well, which was also a big group. They
were the two bands.
They were the
big
bands.
in those days, right?
Yes. It's a pity there are some of the others that I heard about, Superfly Brothers and some of the others. But I couldn't get any of their music. But we have quite a collection.
Superfly came after the movie Superfly. You remember the movie Superfly?
Yes. Okay.
The Superfly brothers.
They came from the movie.
Superfly was a big time movie in those days.
Yes.
One of those black exploitation movies.
Yes, indeed.
What about St. Martin is my home.
Lino and the Hardway, yes. I have some music here from Lino as well. We have 15 songs on the collection from Lino, because Lino also was one of the pioneers.
Right.
He was one of those that started, and after that you would notice a lot of the artists, local artists that produce music, they would produce an album with soca, but they always had some flavor of, from Lino and the Hardway in there as well. So indeed, Lino, yes, he was a pioneer. Yes, a great man.
I had him for the first time many years ago in this program, and he was incredible. He brought me a plaque, and I plan to share that with the public later on, because we're trying to locate that video that we did with him. So this guy was just incredible, and I think what Lino had more than anyone else as a Calypsonian that I interviewed was his love for St. Martin.
Yes. Despite all the challenges that he has had, he loved the island. And I think that song that he did, the one St. Martin is my home, you couldn't get a more beautiful song than that.
So you've covered all of this music you're still doing the show. 23 years on that one, and
Correct.
25 years in radio.
Radio and media on the whole.
You did television. You did basically everything. You wrote for the papers.
If I wrote for
any
the
writing?
newspapers?
Never did that?
Well, interestingly enough, I've written a book,
oh, okay.
which is now I'm now about to get that published.
Mm.
You know, I've done Toastmasters and all of that, so I've
Right.
done a lot of writing and stuff. I've kept myself busy, Oral. With Windward Islands Bank, though, I've always been with the bank.
Yeah.
You know, moving up in the bank, but I always ensure that I do other things that I love, and indeed, broadcasting, media, Toastmasters, doing public,
Right.
you know, appearances, moderating, emceeing, and all of that has always been a passion of mine. And so I've always enjoyed doing all of that. 25 years in radio, like you said, 25 years in media. I have to thank all those because it's the encouragement from the public,
Right.
you know, and the positive, and you can attest to that too. The positive comments that you get from the public is what ensures that you have that consistency. Because there are days when you don't feel like doing it, and you say, "No, I have to do it," because the public is looking forward to
Exactly.
hearing and getting that standard and that quality from what I give, and that has been what has kept me going. So I have to thank the general public, all those folks who on a regular basis, you know, who commend me on the good job that I'm doing. It's because of them that I continue doing what I'm doing.
And you're doing something unique, Calypso.
Calypso.
And your Calypso, maybe you don't realize this, but I'll tell you, your audience is more fanatic than anybody else because they love the music.
They love the
and
music.
you can't mess with it.
Yes. And indeed, like I said, that's why we can't get up tomorrow and say, "Oh, we're not gonna do it anymore," because we'll be in trouble if we do that.
And do you get people requesting songs and so forth?
I do, but I do not copy local music. I do not sell local
I mean,
music.
like on the air, like they want to hear a particular song. Like,
Oh yes, and the interesting thing is not so much Saturday. It's a challenge for me because they meet me during the week.
Oh,
And they
they
tell me
tell
what they
you?
want to hear on a Saturday, and then I have to remember when I get in there on a
Yeah.
Saturday, you know, to play it. But we've now had, because King Stunky and I had been doing it for all the years,
Yeah.
and as you know, he's now doing a special project on Stacia. So we now have a third co-host that is, and that's Claret Connor.
oh, okay.
Mr. Connor has come in to assist us, and he's
Yeah.
also a fanatic when it comes to calypso music.
I
He
didn't know
knows the
that.
music and everything,
Yeah.
you know. So he fills in now and again when I'm not there. He also fills in. So it's good to have, because you need to ensure continuity.
Right.
You know, you need to ensure continuity, and we're happy to have Mr. Connor also on board with us.
Let me ask you this, and this might get you in trouble. Who you think is the greatest calypsonian of all times?
Wow, you're right. It would get me in trouble if you're talking about local.
The greatest of all.
Of all, I would still say the Mighty Sparrow. You know,
Well,
if
I
you
gotta
look
say,
at all
I agree with you.
Calypsonians, yes.
Yeah.
At the end, he has managed to transcend time in the calypso business. And if you listen to his sounds from when he started back in the 60s, the 70s, whatever music as the sound of music changed, he took that music and incorporated it into his calypsos over time. Because if you listen to an original and you listen to one from the 1990s or 2000, and you go through every decade, you'd realize the Mighty Sparrow, as the music changed and adjusted, he ensured he incorporated that. And that was his way of always remaining on top.
Yeah.
As the top calypsonian in the world. There'll always be debates about, you know, which one could have been better, but
Right.
at the end of the day, the Mighty Sparrow, you
I
can't
gotta
stop
agree
it.
with you. Definitely, I feel the same way.
Yes.
And the thing is that I never had the chance to interview him. But I interviewed the other gentleman from Montserrat, the Arrow.
Arrow, yes.
But he was
yes.
really good. I
Yes.
think internationally, with his hot,
Yeah.
it's the biggest thing out of the
Yes,
Caribbean.
he ended up bigger than Arrow internationally. That's
Yeah.
that's bigger than Sparrow internationally.
Right.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So, what plans you have now that you've covered 25 years in radio? What are your plans?
One of the things I want to do more of is writing. You know, like I said, I've just written a book that I'm about to get published. I have 3 other projects that I want to write, books that I want to work on. And because I'm also getting up in age, or, you know, I've kind of stepped back in terms of a lot of the things that I used to do. And now I put more of my time into, indeed, the writing and so on. So this was a beautiful project that I said, things have to come full circle. I started at 99.9, 25 years later, let's put everything into context. Let's make a contribution to the community. And what is next? Yes, I enjoy the television and the radio. I'll continue doing it as much as I can, but I want to get more into the writing and the publishing.
All right, well, I want to wish you much success and
Thank you.
congratulations on 25 years in radio broadcast. I think it's great, and continue the great job.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on the program as well.
You're welcome. And that's it for now. See you next time right here on Oral Gibbs Live. Until then, take care. Bye.